Okay, chicos, so today we are going to take notes on conjugating ER and IR verbs in the present tense, okay? So, let's do that. So you're going to turn to, in your note packet, turn to the ER verb conjugation. That's 2 pages there. And then there's one on IR verbs. So we're going to go to the ER verb conjugation page first. So let's do that. So, all right, let's begin. So there are 3 steps to conjugating verbs in the present tense in Spanish. Step number 1 is to drop your ending, right? Drop the ending. In other words, the AR if it's an AR verb, the ER if it's an ER verb, or IR if it's an IR verb. You are left with what's called the stem after you do so. So if you look at the verb comer, which is one of our vocabulary words, you drop off the ER. The COM, what is left, is called the stem, okay? Step number 2 is to determine the subject. And step number 3, okay, is to add the new ending according to that subject, right? Make sure it matches that subject that you just determined what it was. So here, what I want you to do here is to give me the stem for each one of the following verbs. So pause the video and then restart it after you have finished. So go ahead and do that now. Okay, so you should be back, and let's go over these. So if you take off the ER, what's left is COM. If you take off the AR, what's left is the stem. It's desayun, right? AR here. This is the stem. Whatever is left is the stem. Remember that. V, vender, V-E-N-D, beber, B-E-B. Let's move this over to here out of the way. There we go. Abrir, A-B-R, and cenar, C-E-N, right? Okay. So, what are the endings for ER verbs? Well, if you remember your endings for AR verbs, it would really help you. I'm going to write the endings for AR verbs out here, okay? So an AR verb, these are your endings for AR verbs, okay? If you remember that, o, as, a, amos, ais, an, right? O, as, a, amos, ais, an. Those are your endings for AR verbs. So now ER verbs, it's really simple. It's going to be O for yo, same thing. Now I want you to notice something. What do you notice? There's a pattern here. Notice the pattern, guys. That should be an S. Doesn't really look like an S. There we go. No, should look like an E. There we go. Basically, you've taken the A's and changed them to E's. Do you see that? AR verb, ER verb. Makes it easy, right? So just switch out your A's for E's, and then you're golden. Okay? So let's look at the verb comer, to eat, and we're going to conjugate it into all of its forms. So again, go through the steps. Drop the ending, right? The ER in this case. You're left with the stem COM. That's what's left after you take off the ER. Determine the subject. Who is talking, right? Who is eating. Add new ending. Okay. So if we look, let me move this up here. So if we look here at our chart, basically we've taken the stem and just added our endings. Do you see that? Como, comes, come, comemos, coméis, comen. So I eat, you eat, he, she eats, you eat, because remember usted means you. Nosotros, nosotras, we eat, vosotros, vosotras, y'all eat, right? Ellos, ellas, ustedes. Ellos, ellas is they, so they eat, and ustedes is y'all eat, right? But formal. See? Okay, so I want you to conjugate these verbs. Make sure you write the stem and then conjugate them. Write all 6 forms of the verb, like in the previous chart, how comer looked. Okay, so conjugate each one of these verbs into all 6 forms. You're going to pause the video to do that and then come back to get the answers. Okay, so here we have the verb vender, to sell. The stem is everything that's left after you drop off the ER. So you take the stem, right, for all of these, if you do that. And then you're just going to add your endings after. Or you can do it all at once, it doesn't matter. Okay, so here's your stem, then you just add your endings. Right? Same with beber. What's left after you drop the ER, that is your stem. Add your ending to your stem. Bebes, bebé, bebemos, bebéis, accent over that E, and beben. Okay? Here you have the verb aprender, to learn. And the stem is A-P-R-E-N-D. So yo aprendo, right? Aprendes. You're basically taking the stem and just adding your endings. Aprende, aprendemos, aprendéis, and aprenden. Right? And there you go. And that's all, that's conjugating ER verbs. Now we're going to move on to IR verbs. Now, wouldn't it be nice if it followed the same pattern for your IR verb endings? We just switch out the E's and A's for I's. Okay, it works in this situation here for the nosotros and the vosotros. But in these 3, it doesn't work with follow that pattern. It would be too easy, wouldn't it? So basically, it uses ER verb endings here. So the endings for IR verbs are o, es, e, imos, is, en. Okay? So let's look at the verb vivir. So again, you're going to drop the ending. So the IR this time. You're left with the stem, VIV, because that's what's left after you drop the IR. Determine the subject, right? And add the new ending. Let me fix that ending, right? So if you look, here you go, here's your stem, and then we just added the endings from the chart, right? Vivo, vives, vive, vivimos, vivís, viven. So conjugate these 2 verbs and then come back to me. Pause the video, do them, and then come back. All right, so here we have abrir, to open. The stem is ABR, basically what's left after you drop off the IR. So abro, abres, abre, abrimos, abrís, and abren. Okay? Here you have the verb compartir, to share. The stem is C-O-M-P-A-R-T. So comparto, compartes, comparte, compartimos, compartís. There's an accent right there. And comparten. See? And do not worry about this part. We won't do that. And that's all the notes for ER and IR verbs. Basically, it's just memorization, guys. That's all there is to it. Okay?